Okay, on today's video, we're going to talk about PPC ads and basically what do you say in a day-to-day life? How is that information, as a lot suspect, actually used in advertising that is pointed back at you? Particularly stuff that you say near your phone is what the topic of this particular video is, but I'm going to go into detail on a lot more than just the phone. Your computer, stuff that, how your credit card records are used, how the hardware itself and the software on the hardware both have the capability to pick up clues about what you are likely to buy in the future. And these mammoth advertising companies, i.e. Google being the biggest one, can use all this data that it's not illegal for them to buy data from different people if they're selling it, and you have okayed to give away your data from this third party, or maybe that you've given away voluntarily to Google or what have you, usually to use that data in combination with some other stuff to identify what you're likely going to be buying in the future for what they don't know, get a lot closer with some other data points that they can study from past user behavior with the similar things that you have said to identify and predict in the future what you're going to be buying, and then selling that prediction to somebody who's advertising on Google or Facebook or what have you. I'm primarily going to talk about Google advertising here because that's what I know the most about, and I've done a study just on Google display advertising and how that affects, or how that adjusts itself, we'll say, based upon what you say near a device. We'll just call it a tracking device. Whether or not a device actually tracks, we don't know, because we don't have definitive proof on that either way. We can narrow it down to, I said this by XYZ device, and then the next day I saw an ad for this, so therefore it only could have came from that. Respectively, we're going to talk about how that actually happens, why it happens, and ultimately what the likelihood of it and to what degree it happens in every your day-to-day life. And with all that, I'm going to tie all that information into how this actually helps you be a better advertiser and understand better if you are going to do advertising on Google Display Network, which is everything that you can get done through Google Ads that's not on google.com. So on the millions and millions of websites that Google has search partnerships with partnerships with different publishers to run banner ads through Google AdSense program, we can show up on all those different sites, and to power the advertising, in order for it to work well, we actually have to know generally something about the user who's going to see the ad, not just understand and only be able to look at, like in the old days, what that person was reading on that page. That worked great when people responded to ads at a high rate. People have ignored ads, and we've gotten to the stage now that you have to do these predictive analyses and pick up data from third-party sources and then use some algorithms to figure out what you're likely to buy and then put it out in front of you and measure how that works so they can use it on the next one, the next person who does the same set of traits, whether or not you follow through with the purchase, whether you're not, in order for your ads to work. And with you understanding a little bit more, ending this, or after watching this video about how this actually works, you can understand and maybe get behind Google Display Network advertising a little bit better. So Google, don't come after me. I'm not saying what you're doing is good. Actually, I am saying what you're doing is good, because respectively, the reason why people hate ads is because they're not targeted enough. They're annoying. If I saw an ad that helps me genuinely, I'm not going to be annoyed, nor is most people. And nobody wants to pay for services. They'd rather give away their data than pay for the service. So this is people's choice. And as an advertiser, I want stuff that's going to give me a positive ROI. So anything I say here is just my own opinion, and I don't have any definitive fact, but these are just my own observations and my opinions attached to those observations to show you whether or not this stuff actually happens and to what to do about it in reality as an advertiser for your business. There's a rumor been going on for years now, well warranted by the way, and being involved in PPC myself, I wanted to check this out and see how it works for myself once and for all. So in other words, I've heard before many times, oh, my computer's spying on me. I was looking for, I said I had a wedding coming up, and then I started seeing ads the next day showing up for wedding planners and, wedding tent and table and rug and rental equipment and stuff for a wedding and all the dresses, this and that. And I thought I've noticed this stuff before, but I wanted to be, I sat down and I said, Corey, I really want to see how this stuff works, because obviously if I'm in the ad business, I should understand how this works. Even though nobody will admit that this goes on directly anyway from Google or anybody, we have to kind of make some conclusions. And again, I'm not against it. If it gives me a net positive ROI, it does what it does. So I actually do get behind these methods, as long as it's all legit and above board technically, which it is. So, but I wanted to find out if it's happening so I understand better how my ads are working and how to plan my ads better. Of course, I'm always looking for a higher ROI. So anyway, what I did, this wasn't a very scientific study here or anything. I wrote down every ad and I noticed related to stuff I know I've been talking about recently in the past 3 months or so. Excuse me, just getting over a cold. So basically, for 3 months, I had a notepad that I carried around with me, and I just wrote down ads that coincided with stuff that I was in market for, and I know for a fact I didn't make a search for it at all. Okay? Obviously, this not being scientific, because Google, Facebook, all these online advertisers, they can get data not just from their own websites or what they can technically hear or see you doing on their properties of websites. They go out and buy information from third parties or rent it or lease it, whatever you want to call it. So respectively, we don't know necessarily that it came from this place, even though I think it came from this place over here. I can't prove that because there's so many different places that could be picking it up. What I'm saying, what I type, who knows what technology's out there. What I can do is tell you as close to as possible how this stuff triggered my ad and get some ideas of how sophisticated this stuff actually is, because it's way beyond what you would typically think here. And why, respectively, Google is going to crush not just Facebook, because Facebook now got cut off from Apple, which, by the way, Google still is the default browser on Apple devices in Safari. So respectively, plus they have Google Chrome, plus they have Google, plus they have all their third-party data that they buy data from. There's a lot of data that Google has in terms of an informational edge on Facebook that Google already is doing better than Facebook. The heyday of Facebook, in my opinion, is over. The data in terms of the campaigns that I've personally seen have shown that. The heyday was in 2018, 2019, and then it fell off. But Google's going to, every year, just online advertising as a medium, whereas offline advertising is the opposite of that. Online's eating up more and more market share of the total advertising budgets nationwide, worldwide, because whoever has the most data wins. And this is going to be true in so many fields. If you got a software company, whoever has the most data is going to win. If you got a company that is big enough to where you could run AI systems, to where you could run scripts and get access to data about market predictions, that company is going to win. In the next 20 to 30 years, the winners are going to be the ones who get into artificial intelligence, but not only that, your artificial intelligence is only as good as the data you have access to. And so anybody can do AI. Whoever has enough data is going to be the one that truly wins. In the advertising space, Google, 99% sure at this point is going to win. Who is going to beat them? Can you name any companies that's going to beat them? All the companies they do have a lot of data, I'm convinced Google has partnerships with, because they've been working on these for 10 years. So, respectively, because if you have enough data, you can pretty well, more strongly than anybody tell what somebody's going to do in the future. Therefore, their advertising, they can sell it for more money. They can attract more people to it, which bids up the price. And they're going to have the most data, and they're going to ultimately eat up more and more market share all the time. They're getting data from all kinds of places, and I'm going to go through what a few of these places are, and you can look this stuff up yourself. But respectively, in everyday life, there's no way to get away from it. You're near some device that's going to be listening to you, whether it's your device or somebody else's, or you're going to buy something, and those credit card companies are going to have partnerships with maybe an intermediary company like Axiom. You can look them up, which then has a data partnership with Google. And so it doesn't have to be Google with the company itself. There's aggregation companies who just resell data and provide like the marketplace for the data. If you have an app and you have 10,000 users, it doesn't make money, and you can't find a way to make money, you could sell the user's data to a company like Axiom, assuming they want it and they're big enough to care, need the data for exactly what you have. You don't have to charge any users anything. The users get a benefit because they get to use the app for free, and Google makes their advertising just ever so a little bit more targeted, which allows them to sell the advertising for a little bit more. And in general, it's going to get more and more people to believe in banner advertising, given it's traditionally been very hard for people to monetize that. Once you can get in front of somebody who's been viewing all your competition's stuff, which you're going to be able to, which you can do now, and the way that I'm going to explain it in a minute, then respectively, using banner ads on all these millions of websites that Google has partnerships with that run Google AdSense, this is going to be something that everybody's going to do. Facebook, the reason why they had their so good of sales and everybody was advertising on Facebook for a while is because they had their lookalikes algorithm, which was using data a lot from Apple, but many other places, using data from third-party companies like Axiom again. And they could understand when you sell a product, this knife, they knew who was likely to buy a knife in the future and how to place your ad in front of that person more than other people, enough to where your ads would work after the cost of the advertising. So, but now they're losing all the data. They're losing market share like crazy. Their stock's going down. Google is the big winner from Facebook taking a dive here because they're the only real other competition they had. Mainly from the standpoint of AI-based advertising solutions and machine learning and gobbling up data and using it to power banner advertising to a general market. But getting to the actual topic at hand, there was 3 situations where I wrote down where I've said something or did something and I knew for a fact that triggered the ad because it was too much of a coincidence. The very first instance was for a kitchen appliance. I was talking about buying a certain kitchen appliance. It was a KitchenMaid appliance, and I'm not going to name the specific appliance here, but basically, I know I had my phone on me when I was at the store looking at some appliances there, and I was talking while I was at the store browsing. I know I mentioned this particular item before, a long time ago before I went to the store, but I'm convinced in that situation, the phone that's on me is listening, and it doesn't have to be Google listening. It could be any one of the apps on there that are reselling data that have access to your microphone, which I bet you if you go into your phone, there's at least one app that has access to your microphone, in which in the terms of service say they could sell your data. So, and later on I saw an ad for that. And there's really no reason why they would be targeting me, a middle-aged man. I don't give a crap about this. Unless I'm in a desperate need for this, I'm not going to care to buy something online after I see a banner ad. But not to say no guys do that, of course, but that was one situation where I picked it up, okay? So I can't prove that, but that was one situation, and I'm convinced the phone is probably the number one place where companies that thrive off using data sets to figure out how to target advertising get most of their data because the phone's on you everywhere you go, 24/7 basically. The second situation was where it was a hairdryer. But in this situation, it's a Dyson hairdryer. They're really expensive, like $300 hairdryer. I went to buy a air purifier, a Dyson air purifier. They're really nice. This time I had no phone on me at all when I was with my wife and picked up this air purifier, but they had the hair dryer on display and we were talking about it and like, do you want this? I'll buy it for you. And respectively, I don't know for a fact if it was her phone in her pocket and somehow they can link IDs based upon the geotargeting being close enough that they can associate one phone's associated with another and taking both of those to one router IP address when you're using Wi-Fi on the same router it could be. For me, I think it was so much of a good of a coincidence because I saw a YouTube ad for this and I saw several of them that what happens is Google or again, this is my only speculation here. Somebody has a relationship with the MasterCard Visa. They make it, I'm assuming, and I don't think this is conspiracy theory. You could research this yourself. They sell the credit card data to other people like Axiom. And then so basically, because Axiom, I've seen they've got purchasing data. They get it from somewhere. I don't know definitively where they're getting it from. And I've heard MasterCard and Visa, and I know for sure American Express sells to Axiom because I've seen that one personally. But I think they just, if you buy something, then that data gets passed on. And Dyson only makes 3 or 4 or 5 flagship products. And they know when somebody's going to buy the air purifier, I'm pretty sure nobody buys a $300 hairdryer. And if you do, you were 5 times to have bought it, likely to bought it if you've also already bought the air purifier. Because you're shown that you will pay top dollar for top merchandise, basically. And so, respectively, the algorithm would make perfect sense why it would market the hairdryer if I bought the air purifier, because they often are bought, one person buys the same thing. So I don't know if it was from my wife's phone that could pick it up or the purchase data, but these are both real things that happen. Whether or not it was one or the other, you could dig into this and find out, and giving you an idea of how this stuff works more than anything. The third one was a home loan. We were talking about buying another house. Wells Fargo was the one where I saw an ad for a home loan. And you're saying home loan, maybe I see ads for that all the time. But it wasn't like I haven't really seen too much of once in a great while I'll see an ad for a mortgage, because nobody's going to get a mortgage when it's like so event driven. If I don't need one now, I'm not going to give a crap if you're saying it's 3% or 2% or whatever. But like right after we started talking about this, I even saw a couple more ads for different loans, not Wells Fargo. So for me, those two were tied together, those two events. So respectively, in this situation, I was near my PC when we were talking about this. I was also not near my PC when we were talking about this, but respectively, I believe my PC, that situation, picked it up. So anymore, who knows? Because you got all these devices and programs all around us, there is no privacy anymore. Unless you're going to live like a hermit, you're not going to have full privacy. And you got to know, as an advertiser, your competition who has access to this data on your markets, customers, you having that understanding of this and your competition don't for the next 5 to 10 years, when they will figure it out, because this is going to be bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger of a thing all the time, to the point where if you're not involved in it, you're just not going to win at all. AI is going to eat up everything. So you can get out ahead of it now, or wait until and have to catch up later. The one trend I see here right now off the bat is all of these ads that I noticed, though, of course, are all major companies. Not surprising, considering it's only bigger companies doing first-click display advertising in the first place. First click being not remarketing, so they've never been to my site yet. People that want to advertise to have a banner show up for a person that has never been to their site, before, that would be what I call first click display advertising. So it was all had to be first click display advertising. I'll reinforce because I've never been to these people's sites here. And respectively, on top of that, each company was like I don't know what the size of these companies are, but we'll just say $100 million a year plus companies. So they're huge companies that can afford to do first click display advertising. I'll tell you as a PPC specialist that most people don't do first click display advertising, especially Google Display Network first click display advertising, because it's hard to get to work. You got to have a good ad. If you don't have an amazing product or service that's really super enticing, nobody gives a crap about your ad. And so it's hard to monetize that. If you do have something that if somebody saw it, you know right away they'd want it. Display advertising is better than anything, by the way. So, but if you have enough money, it will work fantastic. You need runway to run the ads and let the algorithm figure out through trial and error how to get in front of the person who's likely to buy it next, like Facebook, how it got so successful, and use that data set where it had success of a purchase on the next ad and the next ad. And you run the ads for a year, 2 years, they start to become really profitable. Whereas the first 6 months to a year, they may not do crap. Slowly start picking up steam. And obviously, when you're talking about first click advertising, there's so many different ways to target an ad. It's not just about getting it in front of somebody and letting Google decide all themselves, which you can do. But there's several ways that you can target, which I'm going to talk about at the very end of the video, in which you're going to take advantage of these data sets out there that Google gets its hands on to be able to make their advertising better, and just in general how, like Facebook and people like this do it. But where is this tracking going on? As I gave you these examples, it can come from so many places. Home listening devices, which I don't use or do, like Google Home, what is it called? The Alexa, I can't remember what it's called, where you can get those little boxes that you put on your dresser or whatever, so you could say, "Hey Google, what's the temperature?" and they kick back the answer. So that's one source. Second source, Siri, Cortana, or other personal assistants. So there's personal assistants on PCs and phones and Apple desktops and all that. And all of that data, obviously they got to pay for that somehow. It's not the services, it's big, there's big money invested in that. Obviously it's to collect data, and they don't have to be the one using it. Like I said, the key thing is they can sell it to somebody who then sells it to somebody who sells it to somebody who then uses it. Third, apps, including default apps on phones and PCs. So when you have a PC or whatever, or a phone, there's all these default apps when you buy it. Who's to say none of those aren't spying on you? We don't know. And until you delete them, you don't ever know for sure, or dig in to find out if they've got access to your mic or even your camera or whatever else. It gets access to your, do key logging. I don't know. We don't know what's going on out there because we just don't know. We'll just leave it at that. The Google app itself. So, you have the default Google app on your phone. With that app open or on your phone all the time, basically that kicks, we don't know to what degree that has access to. I don't know. I'm not claiming anything. There's another thought. You also have the Chrome app on your phone, another Google product. Then there's other devices. Smart TVs. You know why smart TVs are so cheap now? Because they can sell the data. They're basically giving the TV away. It's like those printers, those inkjet printers, those cheap ones, or even the laser printers now, the cheaper ones. They'll sell it at a loss so they can sell you the ink. The money is in the ink or the toner cartridges. The smart TV, the money is in the data. What you watch, how you watch it, when you watch it, who you watch it with, who's all watching it. Are you a family person or you're not? What's your age? What's your gender? All this stuff because there's cameras on those TVs now too. So and plus they have access to, on those smart TVs, to YouTube and the internet, and they're collecting data from there. So just like on the phone, you've got apps. TV has apps too to monitor stuff. And to what degree you won't know really. Tablets, same. And then each device at the hardware level, we don't know what stuff's on there. So in other words, on the phone itself, is there any hardware level, recording stuff that's there, or on your computer? Not just software, but like, is there anything built into the hardware? I don't know. It's food for thought. But anyway, there's a lot of possibilities in how information's being harvested out there about us. If you don't want to be tracked, tape up your camera, uninstall everything. There's ways to get around it. I'm not going to go into that. Most people aren't doing that, and Google's getting more profitable every year because they're getting better at their targeting, and they're getting better at their targeting because their algorithm's getting better, and access to data is getting better at the same time, and they're going to crush everybody. Respectively, if you want to take advantage of this today, or if you wait in the future, it's, like I said, it's up to you. You want to take advantage and strike when the iron's hot, or play a game of catch-up. It's up to you. You have those Google Display Network campaigns that you can run. You can run regular brand display campaigns, which you don't hear too many people talking about. If somebody mentions your product, if you sell, fire tennis balls, is a big brand. If you set up a custom intent audience, is what it's called on Google Display Network, and put your brand name and brand keywords in there, save it. Respectively, anybody who searches for your brand name on Google within the last 30 days goes into a list. If anybody says anything about your branded product, your ad can show up now, just like it did with me here. Obviously, Google would not do this if it didn't work. Obviously, we both know it works. And it makes logical sense to do that. As creepy as it sounds, this stuff's going on anyway. If you're not going to take advantage of it, somebody else is going to do it anyway. This is going to be all normalized. Respectively, if somebody is talking about buying your product and they haven't bought it yet, basically, you're not going to make as much if you don't advertise to them, because a bunch of people who say they're going to buy, maybe only 20% ever do, because they procrastinate, they forget, they get persuaded by competitor products, they spend the money on something else. So why would you not? That would be the first thing you would want to do, if anything, when you're talking about display advertising for yourself. That and remarketing, as I've mentioned on many videos, remarketing is always the first thing you do. Remarket and get a higher converting rate on the traffic you already have coming in, that you naturally have coming in. Once you've done that, now we can experiment with using banner ads to drive new people who've never heard of us in. And because Google has all this data, the second thing I would always do with Google Display Network to take advantage of this wealth of data that's open to you to have and access is competitor campaigns. So just like the brand campaigns, you create a custom intent audience with your brand name of your competitor. And I'm going to create one for every way that you're going to describe the competitor. The brand name, the trade name, the legal name, save it so that when somebody says the competitor's name at any point or searches for it in the recent past, you can have an ad that has your brand name on it, or even better, which I recommended you do before, you say your product versus the competitor. So if they were thinking of buying the competitors, they have this ad pops up that says why you're better than that competitor, why you should reconsider that purchase. And obviously, maybe they weren't really going to buy from them anyway, but that would be the first place you would look for a new customer. It's the most likely to buy. You're going for the most statistically likely person to buy, because that's going to have the highest ROI first. You're going to do that for each of your competitors. I would do it at the company name level. And then if you have individual products that go head-to-head with a competitor's head-to-head product, but you have multiple products, then I'm going to have a custom intent audience for every product. So if they're searching for the Texas Fire 12RD tennis ball, and I have a tennis ball just like it, but it's better, and it's in a special class just like that one is, then I can have an ad show up for the person who said that they were going to buy that special tennis ball from the competitor. So I can say, maybe I don't have the cojones to say, our tennis ball is better than the 1240D or whatever I said there. Maybe you just say, our tennis ball that's great for high-speed serves, which is why they're going to get why basically they would want the competitor ball. They click on your ad and at least get them to the site, because at that point in time, you've set yourself up that good. You're talking about 1 to 5% of the time that you can get them to buy your product at that stage, because they were already almost going to buy the competitors. You say it's better. With an ad click, when you do an ad that targeted, your ad click is only going to cost 10 to 15 cents. So if you can't make that work, nothing will. That's competitor campaigns. You say custom intent audience. You can tap into this data that's there available for you. And then the last thing is the similar audience campaigns is what they're called. So Facebook has lookalike audiences, which uses all their data from all the people on Facebook and all the data that they rent or lease from other people who have data on those same users. And if you're curious how this works, they have the email address of a user and they say, hey, Joe, I know you run this fertility app. Anybody you have with this email address or this list of email addresses here that I have, kick back all the data you have about them. And then they merge the data together. So they have Facebook user, and here's their fertility status from that app. And then you have now fertility data on each of your users from Facebook that they wouldn't have given to you through Facebook, but you now have to run your advertising on. This is how it's all going. So Facebook blew up in terms of profitability and word of mouth and got popular, and then now it's on its decline because it's been cut off of the data. Ironically, at the same time that Google is kicking out third-party cookies, and at the same time that they have access to the most first-party data, so Google's going to rule now. If you're going to bet on somebody, you bet on Google for the future of your business. That instead of doing lookalike audiences on Facebook, you can do similar audience campaigns on Google Display Network, which works on the same principle. They try to look at your customer list. If you give them a customer list, which you should do, you can give them an export of the phone numbers or the email addresses from your customer database, upload it to Google. They'll look at them. They'll see all the traits of their millions of data points they have on all Google's users that they have. They save every time you do anything to do with anything Google. They save what you do and they track it. And obviously they buy data from other places. When you give them 5,000 email addresses, they'll say out of these 10 million data points, the statistical likelihood is at least threefold that they have these 300 traits that are in common. So anybody with these 300 traits, I'm just going to now, if you want to get a customer, have your ad show up in front of people with those 300 traits. It's in a nutshell how it works. And then it's still not perfect. Every product is different, and every channel in terms of how you're selling is different. So you try to always get it as close to you can in terms of how you're setting your ads up to work with Google or with anybody. But you still got to expect it's going to take some runway to get it working, and have Google or whoever learn from its own mistakes, because that's how machine learning works. It's a trial and error. That didn't work, so try this. Okay, that worked. Do more of this. Okay, that didn't work. Don't do that. And after a few thousands, tens of thousands of different learnings, it knows how to run your ads almost perfectly. So yes, you got to expect to lose. You might not be in a position to lose, $10,000, $20,000 to get this engine working, but you may make $200,000 a year thereof for the next 5 years once it is working. There's a certain point, generally speaking, when you get Google search to work and Bing search to work, where you need to be able to expand. And Google Display Network, once you've done all your remarketing, the first click is the way to expand. You just take a small slice of your profits, reinvest it into this first click display advertising, starting with your brand campaigns. Do your competitor campaigns next, because those are the second highest producing. then go to your similar audience campaigns. Respectively, upload your customer lists there, analyze them, and then have your banner ad show up for people then, Google thinks is like the customers you've had in the past, and let them start learning how to do it. If you have conversion tracking set up so that they understand when you got a purchase, then they'll figure out on their own through trial and error how to get you more customers at less money on an ongoing basis. And it'll keep just getting more and more profitable on its own. You usually have to have a good 1,000 plus customers to be able to do that. 5 to 10,000 customers works a little better in terms of what they call customer match to do these similar audience campaigns, just as a small side tip. But that's what you're looking at, okay? Display advertising can make more money than search advertising in the long run because of how good the AI and machine learning stuff is getting and works. It just doesn't work as fast as search advertising because you pretty much can tell without any process of elimination with search when somebody's looking to buy your exact thing and they're searching for it and they want it now. It's pretty easy to figure out through very little trial and error there how to get it to work. So if you go in with that being your expectation with the display ads, you're not going to be happy because it's two different animals completely. But once it gets working, it can really get working. So just keep that in mind as you go into it and if you're going to try this out for yourself at some point. Hope you enjoyed this video. I have a lot of other videos on this channel about other PPC money-making strategies. If you would like to see some other ways to make money with PPC, you should check my channel out. I have a blog at guaranteedppc.com/blog with step-by-step instructions on how to build campaigns that are guaranteed to work for our clients and what I use for our clients here. If you'd like to see some stuff along those lines, you can find it there. Apart from that, if you have any questions or comments, things that you think I should have covered and didn't, or general questions, leave me a comment below. I get back to every single person who leaves me a question or comment on this channel within a day or two. Apart from all that, I hope you enjoyed this video a lot, and I hope to see you on my next one talking about another PPC strategy in a day or two.